Oh, it's a great day today. A wonderful day to be on 3 and Out. The Braves a lot. The Mets, not a lot. Last night, there from SunTrust. The whole thing was beautiful. You get up a couple runs, it rains, the Mets get to feel bad about themselves for 30 extra minutes or an hour, and then you go out and just beat the brakes off of them. Love it. Now you got to do it again tonight. That's the beauty of the big series, Ben, is you can celebrate, but you got to turn around and do it again, but you draw within 4.5, and we talked about it yesterday on the show. It's put up or shut up time, and at least in game one, the Braves put up. Now you still have Scherzer and DeGrom dangling out there in games 3 and 4, but the point is, you didn't want to get swept.
Nope.
You didn't want to come out and let this thing go from 5 to 8, 9. Then it's really over as far as the division goes. You just need that Jorge Soler. We're still here. Don't forget about us. And last night just laid it on. And again, masterful performance. Spencer Strider continues to look good. The young kid Grissom continues to look good. Ronald Acuna starting to figure it out and look like himself again. Man, what was not to like about what went down last night?
All I'm going to say is this, Kevin. I know I on BJ Ben is always talking about the market correction, 13 runs. That's a lot of runs. I'll take it because this is why you'll take this. Kevin, we've been saying this. The Braves, what they did in June, incredible. Was able to carry that over into July. You know, you talk about Grissom. You talk about Michael Harris. All that stuff comes to an end when you look at what the Mets have done, both series when they had with the Braves. Last night was the Mets wanted to prove that they are still the beast in the NL East. The Braves no, we are here, and I know that, quote, we control our own destiny in the wild card. We ain't using no wild card stuff, and you said it. This is a psyche game because if the Braves don't come out and win that game, you start saying, well, dude, maybe we just can't beat them this year. Now, I know they got 3 more games to go, but you got to appreciate the fact that, like you said, Kevin, look, misery last night, was purchased and owned by the Mets. You can have it all. Rain delay, you got to sit there and all this. And then when I think Ronald Acuna Jr. had that supposed to be just a routine fly out. Left fielder couldn't find it. I said, everything is going to the Braves. And sometimes, man, we just want to be able to just release some of this frustration because the Mets have been very frustrating to the Braves. They got a big win last night. Still got some games coming up. DeGrom and Scherzer, that'll give me a lot of, will give me some poise with those guys coming. But one night, everything went the Braves' way. Truist did what they were supposed to do. Grissom, he just continues to show why he is who he is. If you needed a hit last night, you got you one last night. Can you carry that momentum in the game too? But I will take a big win for them Bravos.
Yeah, and great to see Grissom just continue to be so effective at the plate. Patient at bats where whatever's needed, he comes through. If it's a double, if it's, advance the runner, just been great on all fronts and really enjoy watching him play. But you mentioned it came from everywhere last night. Acuna, 3 for 5. Like Kevin said, he's getting hot. Dansby, 3 for 4. Getting that average back up closer to 300. Darno had a home run. Contreras had another home run. Rosario had a home run. So he's getting hot. I think it was Darren Ruff who came in. The Mets kind of gave up and, brought in a position player to pitch. So the Braves were able to take advantage of that. But it's about momentum. It's about making a statement. It's about an exclamation point win. And yes, I say this all the time. I'll say it after a game where you score 13 runs. Every game counts the same. So if you win 2-1 or 13-1, it's the same in the standings. But I think you made a little bit of a statement. I think you were embarrassed a little bit in New York City. You were not
with good reason.
Yeah, you were not at your best. The Mets were clearly the better team. And for large stretches of that series, it was not close. Well, guess what? It came back to Atlanta, and at least one game in, the opposite has happened. Atlanta wins going away. Atlanta wins with, I think everybody in the lineup had at least one hit, Ben, to your point. And then you had some guys with 2 and 3. Strider out there doing his thing. That ERA almost back down to 3 flat. You had just a 6 or 7 run, like 5th or 6th inning, somewhere in that mid to late inning range. It was great to see. I think it sets a tone. I think it answers some questions. I believe in momentum. And yes, been the law of averages and the runs and all that stuff. Look, we'll see. The Mets are like 17-4 in their last 21, even after last night. So I would think a market correction for them is coming as well. But the Braves have now won 7 in a row. Kevin, How do we know what to expect from Charlie Morton tonight? I don't know, but given who's coming up with Scherzer and DeGrom, I think you need to get this one tonight. I think you need it tonight.
Yeah, look, this is a big series. If you want to have a chance to win the division again, I don't think you can rely on this Mets team to fall all over themselves and take a huge slide. I just don't know that that's going to happen. You got to make it up as best you can head to head. That's why last night was huge. And this is a organization, I think the Mets, different from previous organizations where Steve Cohen is like, we need to spend some money? Fine. There we go. There's a couple million. Just throw it at it and throw out the problem. I mean, again, you've got a billionaire owner who has basically said, I will do whatever it takes to win a championship. Mets haven't won one since the 80s. Everybody else in the East has won one since 2000. Mets haven't won one since the 80s. Your little brother, whether you want to say you are or not, your little brother in New York.
Yep.
You haven't won a championship in a long time. You have a history. I mean, they are the baseball version of Clemsoning. I mean, are they not?
Can we say that about Clemson anymore?
No, but
Yep.
but as the verb
yeah,
Clemsoning,
exactly, yeah.
you can, because that I'm not saying it now to describe the current Clemson team. I'm using it as the verb that became into common usage. Clemsoning, i.e., you let things go in a positive situation. Now, Clemson overcame that, but I think the new Clemsoning might be NC Stating or something like that, where you have a team that
You're
is
already
good.
going after NC State.
No,
I mean, we're 10 minutes into Ben. He's already going after
No, but
NC
Ben
State.
knows. I said this on the show before,
Yeah.
where they are a good team, proverbially lose some games that they wouldn't. Otherwise, I think NC State would be a 10-11 win potential
Okay,
program.
but
I
doesn't
think
that describe like almost every team
No.
except
No.
Georgia, Alabama,
No,
Ohio State?
because
you feel like
everybody-
that's the barrier to winning. Like the Mets' barrier to winning and getting into the postseason feels like they are their own worst enemy at times. And I feel like that's where the Clemson thing came from, was like, you have a roster good enough to win a championship, but you end up losing to Wake Forest or something, Miami, who was, a 500 team, and just kind of inexplicable. And you're going, the barrier for you to get a championship is you. You're losing. You're not losing the games that we think you could lose. You're losing the games you're not supposed to lose.
Facts.
And so I think the Mets kind of had that. Everybody's like, well, the Mets will go through a 2-week stretch where they just lose a whole bunch of games, and that'll be pretty much it for them. Hasn't happened yet. We shall see if it
Really
comes back.
good starting pitching though.
It
Can
really
help
does,
you.
yeah.
Can help 1 through 5.
I mean, Dansby Manson
help
already
you
hit a
avoid
two-run
those.
jack off of off the Grom, which doesn't happen often. But I think Kevin makes this distinction, BJ. Kevin's talking about teams that are relevant, right? NC State relevant, Clemson relevant. There are a lot of teams in pro sports and collegiate sports that are not relevant, right? Now, Kevin loves NC State for a different reason, for those of you who don't know. I mean, there are coaches, and then there's Coach David. Look, Kevin
It's
loves
just every day. I
No, no,
understand
no.
because I like NC State.
Yeah.
Like, right?
No. Kevin said he was at a coach's clinic, and then Coach Dorn was like going to give a riveting, like motivational speech to all the coaches. And Kevin was like, "Oh, I got to see." He was getting ready to walk out. Kevin, hold on for Coach Dorn. And Kevin was like, he looked back, and he's done. And then that was it. I'm just saying. I will say when it
I
comes to
feel
the
like
best,
Dave Doran is going to find me somewhere and fight me.
I would love
Just
that.
I'm going to wind up on one of those videos that Ben watches on Twitter and YouTube all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just me walking down the street, and Dave Doran RKO's me out of nowhere on the sidewalk.
No. You don't notice him. Somebody around him noticed you. They go, that's that Kevin guy. That's him. Yeah, he goes, hey, Kevin Thomas. And you turn around like this, Coach. And he's like, I hear you got a lot to say, and I hear you do not. And they go in, and there it is. Like, what? No, listen, if you can't enjoy what you do, man, why do it? I just think that at the end of the day, there was a picture going around, a Coach Dorn coming out, at AC Media Days, and he just happened to look and go, I could just, there you go, right there. Kevin.
Isn't there a picture of
Yeah,
Kevin
he's
Coach
giving me-
Dorn
he's
on
gi-
the internet?
Yeah, he's giving me the eyeballs.
Kevin goes, so you mad at me for doing my job? Yeah,
They're
I'm going to ask you a
Listen,
question.
you better prepare. They're going to be good this year.
I
I don't know how he went from the Braves to NC
I don't know,
State.
because I was trying to describe the Mets Clemson thing, and
Yep.
you got all offended that I said Clemson. But no, but anyway, I think for this Braves team, if you want to circle back, I feel like this is one of those things where you can't look at it and say, well, the Mets will come back to us. No, they're going to do what they've been doing all year long, and with DeGrom and Scherzer, they're not going to have a lot of prolonged losing streaks. So you kind of look at it, back in the day of the Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz. hey, we may lose a couple, but we're not going to have a 5-6 game losing streak because one of those guys is going to get us out of it. And I think that's how you view the Mets. And they've invested a lot in their roster, and they're a good team. Do I think the Braves are better? I still think the Braves are a better team, but that has to fit. That has to prove itself out on the field. And how do you do that? You got to win games like tonight, certainly Wednesday and Thursday, if you want to keep pace. If you somehow were able to win 3 out of 4, and this thing's sitting there 3 games with a month and a half to go, I mean, that's anybody's business at that point. Ben's getting all loose.
I am, because people think 162, this thing gonna be over. Nope, it'll still come down to the last 2 weeks, and Kevin gonna hit us with that story of, I remember when the Braves were up by this many games. I said, I don't want to hear that stuff. Don't BJ Bennett this thing. I don't use word like currently constituted in market corrections. I think you got the hell beat out you. From what I saw last night, you got that thing put on you. Hopefully, we can have a repeat effect of them Braves and Bravos. And
I wouldn't be upset if they scored 10, 11, 12 runs again tonight and just laid it on the Mets. We got so much to get to here on the show. Eric Kelton, Savannah State head coach, had to reschedule from yesterday to today. We got him coming up here in just a little bit. Also, Jake Roos, Dogs HQ. He will join us, and we'll talk some Georgia football, talk SEC football in the final hour with Mike Bratton, SEC Mike of that SEC podcast, but also talk some Braves baseball coming up in the final hour of the show as well. So much to get to. Love to have you be a part of the show. 912-342-7184. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. You can also hear us online at ESPNCoastal.com or watch us online, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Go to ESPN Coastal on YouTube, and you can give us a watch. Or if you missed the show, go there as well. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Aaron Kelton going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. Savannah State head football coach as they get ready for the September 3rd opener against Southeastern. A little bit of a new offensive scheme in place. We'll talk to him coming up in just a little bit. But obviously, we've been breaking down the SEC from a league standpoint. The quarterbacks, very deep. The running backs, good group there. Wide receiver seems to be a spot where the SEC has really, really done well in the last handful of years where you're putting guys high in the draft. Talk about the top guys in the draft. Last year, you had Drake London and Olave from other conferences, but you had a lot of SEC wide receivers that were very highly thought of going in the draft. Where do they stand now? Again, losing guys to the National Football League. Who are your top 5 guys on the outside here in the SEC?
Yeah, I think you have a lot of talent from not just last year, but the last couple of years to replace. I know I was a big fan of Treylon Burks, who went to your Titans, of course, Ben, and I think when you look at the top 5 wide receivers in the SEC here as we get ready for the start of the season, there are some proven guys at the top, but I don't think in terms of having, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys who have right now preseason All-American type attention. I don't think you have that depth. But for number 5, I'll go Jaden Hazelwood at Arkansas. I know he's been to a couple of different schools, but now you're at Arkansas with KJ Jefferson. I think that has the potential. You saw what Burks did last year to be really dynamic. Hazelwood, very talented, former 5-star recruit. I think he could be extremely productive in that offense, and that offense could find a little more balance. Arkansas is going to want to run the football. For me, number 4, I'm going to go Jermaine Burton at Alabama, formerly of Georgia, and a little bit of a change. You go from an offense that probably wanted to run the football more times than not to now you're a part of an offense that, even with the great running backs, we'll see how Jahmyr Gibbs is used, but probably with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner wants to throw the football a little more. So I'm taking a little bit of a wait and see there with the transition. I'm a big fan of Jermaine Burton. I think he's going to be extremely productive, but I have him coming in at 4 at Alabama. 3 for me, I have Josh Vann at South Carolina. Josh Vann was putting up big plays a year ago. And remember,
without Spencer Rattler,
especially at the beginning of the year, you had what a graduate assistant.
Yeah, that's a G. Yeah,
right. You had some turnover at the quarterback position. I think Josh Vann, who's already being talked about as a high NFL pick because of his size and athleticism, he and Spencer Rattler, that could be really, really productive. For me, number 2, Cedric Tillman at Tennessee. He's the guy for the Vols. The Vols were unstoppable at times last year. Cedric Tillman quietly, and you've had some huge numbers in the SEC, Ben, of course, the last couple of years. He had 12 touchdowns a year ago.
Yep, you love the double-digit touchdowns.
A dozen.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That you don't get much better than that.
Yep.
And then number 1 for me, I know the production hasn't been quite as consistent because, unfortunately, he's dealt with injuries, but we've seen what he can do, the 300-yard game against Ole Miss. I think Kayshon Boutte, I think he's probably going to be a top 10 pick out of LSU. I think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the country. Now, Miles Brennan, you have stepping away from football. You have a little bit of a quarterback change there at LSU. But my 5, and I think you could go a number of different ways, but I'll go Hazelwood, Burton, Vann, Tillman, and Boutte.
Yeah, I like your list, BJ. I mean, a lot of those guys are going to be real similar to my list. But my number 5 is, even though he doesn't have Matt Corral back, I like Jonathan Mingo. I mean, he's one of the long returning guys coming back. And BJ, you talk about stats. Before he got hurt last year, averaging 97 yards a game and a touchdown per game. I mean, that's about as good as you can get, almost 100 yards and a touchdown. Now, I think he's going to benefit from the scheme because obviously Matt Corral is gone. But that scheme, and he's been in it, he understands how to get open in the lane, give an offense. He's going to be my number 5. My number 4, I'm sorry, BJ, until proven otherwise, I think it's going to be Tyler Harrell. Why? Bryce Young. He's going to be on the other side of a Jermaine Burton. And I just think that when you look at the thing about a guy like Bryce Young, he needs 2 guys, which I'm going to get to another guy on this list as I keep going up. But I just think that coming over from Louisville, obviously he's a route running, guy. I mean, I know that Mr. Cunningham is going to miss out on him, but you don't come from Louisville to Alabama if you ain't ready to play right away. My number 3 is Kayshon Boutte, BJ. I'm going to tell you why. He is great, but he's always watching the game, not in the game. He's always hurt. Now, when he's out there, he's out there. But can't make the club in the tub. I know he might be the most talented guy on this list, but everybody else, they're available. The best ability in football first is availability. He's not there. I got to see it, but when it comes to upside, he is the best. My number 2 is Jermaine Burton. I think Jermaine Burton is going to light it up. Jermaine Burton is coming from an offense that was running the football when he first got there, kind of went to more passing, and he still didn't factor into it. All right, I'm going to go somewhere I know they're going to run and throw me the rock, and obviously his teammate, Tyler Harrell, is my number 4. My number 1 is Cedric Tillman. For this reason, BJ, we just saying 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, let it happen. I'm sorry. And I love my Florida receivers. That I don't know if 2 of them can give you that. 1,112. I'm just saying that at this point, and BJ, this is a guy that's going to get another year in this offense with Hendon Hooker from the jump. I'm getting Hendon because this is a blend of different quarterbacks, and I still gave you that production. And Tennessee has got to have a go-to guy. And I think that Cedric Tillman, I mean, when you look at the fact that he got to deal with the Bouttes, he got to deal with the Jermaine Burtons and all these guys, we don't want to give him love because of where he plays, not how he plays. The boy can play. 1,100, 12 TDs coming off a year to where they trying to figure out what his offense is going to be. I think he's going to have a chance to go back and have another, stellar year. But, to go through my list again, Jonathan Mingo, Ole Miss, Tyler Harrell, Kayshon Boutte, Jermaine Burton, and Cedric Tillman. I think that the SEC, while it's really, really good top to bottom of QBs, look, watch out for some of these guys. I mean, obviously, these are the names we know. I think at the end of this year, you're gonna have a bunch of guys.
Yeah, could have some young guys have.
Yes,
big years.
I mean because at the end of the day, what you got Hendon Hooker. I mean, you got Bryce Young throwing these guys. I mean, obviously the Kayshon Boutte thing, we're gonna have to see how that pans out, as well as who's gonna be throwing the rock, for Ole Miss. But I think all these guys are about as good as advertised.
Yeah, wide receivers all over the place, fellas. And when you got the quarterbacks to get them the football, you can go next level. And I think to me that's been the turning point in the SEC, where it was so much running the football and playing defense. And in the last 7 to 8 to 10 years, you've really seen the proliferation of top wide receivers coming out of the SEC now. And that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
And I think Burton may be the most interesting guy on the list because you think back to some of his, big time performances.
His debut, the same with JT Daniels.
The game against Mississippi State, right? I mean, he's had some moments where you've looked and went, "This guy is so smooth, he's unstoppable." And for whatever reason, the production wasn't always there at Georgia. Georgia trying to run the ball and do what they need to do. And now you go to Alabama, and as you mentioned, you have a very talented Louisville transfer on the other side, and Harrell. You're going to have a great offensive line. You're going to have a great backfield. And, oh, by the way, you have the best quarterback in the country, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, who, I mean, he may be – what is he capable of? Could he get to 55 touchdowns this year?
If they don't take him out.
Yeah, so I think that's a good pick. I'm just taking a little bit of a wait-and-see approach to see how that wide receiver rotation develops. But, yes, I think the most interesting guy on here – maybe at receiver in the entire SEC is Jermaine Burton going from Georgia, of course, to Alabama.
At the end of the day, BJ, just because you go to Georgia, Alabama doesn't mean you're going to play. But if you are ready to play like a guy like Jermaine Burton, who's coming off a national championship, beating Alabama, to say, "Hey man, I want some of that action." At the end of the day, people want to win collectively, but I want to show off what I do individually. I think Jermaine Burton, and just to tell my age, Jermaine Burton's grandmother is my old roommate Max Starks' auntie. So that just lets you know how long we've been away from this thing. When that boy was coming out the womb, we was just getting to college. Now he got this scoring touchdowns and putting rings on his finger. We'll see what happens. Look out if you are a DB, because you're going to get a lot of work in 2022.
A lot of long Saturdays out there for those guys around the SEC. We got more to come here on 3 and Out. Aaron Kelton, Savannah State head football coach, set to join us when we return. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, on the ESPN app. You can also watch us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. So on YouTube, ESPN Coastal. You can follow the show there as well. We'll hear from Rich Stiles, Back Nine Boys Golf Show. Apparently, big meeting amongst the golfers out there to try to keep them involved with the PGA Tour. Also, Jake Roos, Dogs HQ, will join us coming up next hour. We'll talk some Georgia football with him. We are efforting Aaron Kelton, Savannah State head football coach. Hopefully, he will join us here in just a little bit. But fall camp's going on all around, and obviously, if you're good, Ben, you're trying to find, like Georgia, some guys to plug and play. I know after the first practice or first scrimmage, Kirby was not pleased with his defense, but you're finding guys who are uber talented who are finally in the spotlight on that side of the football.
Yeah, and I think the one thing a lot of people are getting, like those shell shock guys, as far as like those freshman guys, I think what they realizing is the hardest thing to be in life is the hardest thing to be in football, is that is to be consistent. I don't care how big you are, I don't care how fast you are. Can you do it consistently? Can you make blocks if you're an O lineman? Can you get off blocks if you're a D lineman? Can you make plays if you're a skill position guy? If you're a quarterback, can you take the man to the offense and all these different things? And that is just installed. And you got to go to team takeoff. And you got to go to 7-on-7. It's like every single time there is a drill, are you standing out or are you just standing still? That's my go. Are you standing out or are you standing still? Well, coach, I said, listen, he said, some of y'all, I don't know why y'all need tickets on Thursday. Yeah, because you're not playing on Saturday. and that, I mean, because what happens is, Kevin and BJ, is this. It is a business. If you go to Georgia, your coach just signed a $100 million extension. Not LeBron, right? Kirby. He just signed $112 million. That doesn't, as we say, Kevin, all the time, this $100 million responsibilities ain't the same as 9 to 5 type situation. So I think, hey, you're a player, go out there and prove it. It ain't about what you say, it's what you do. It's time to go out there and do it at a consistent level, at a high level. And please, look at Nick Saban, the way he's talking to his coaches and his players. Do anybody say anything back? No, because they want to play. And if they don't like it, they become head coaches and get the hell out. Just ask Lane Kiffin, just ask Mike Locksley, and so on and so forth.
How long into fall camp until you're looking around going, all right, I'm ready to play somebody else? Because you had the spring, you had the off-season conditioning. I mean, what's the mindset like in fall camp?
You are frustrated because there's only so many things you can do when you're going up against guys that know your plays, know your tendencies, know what you do well, know what you don't do well, BJ. But you also got to ask yourself, every single day you go out there, if you're blessed to be able to go up against, quote, the best at your position on defense, are you making sure they helping you become better? Because if you do it the right way, Saturday be easy. Because if I'm getting the best or one of the best in the country, it's supposed to be rough. I mean, I understood that. Took me 3 years to really understand that. The Alex Browns of the world were very kind to me when I first got to college because, well, I know they didn't embarrass me like they could. I mean, when the defensive end tell you good job, 8-4, that means you didn't do good. He's trying to, that's our motivation, right? Kevin, Kevin, what did I say about these rookie quarterbacks, right? What do they do? Man, that's a great throw. Great throw, hey. You don't got to do that. They don't got to do that with Tom Brady. He knows if it's a good throw. Why? Because I threw it and he caught it. Now, that's a nice ball. They're trying to build up your confidence because that's going to turn into feedback real soon. But no, it comes with it. I was young and naive and didn't understand the severity or the complexities of going to a place like Florida. That helped me until, Zornberger tell me, you got to get open this year. Well, coach, it's the first day of camp. Don't care.
We have found the head coach at Savannah State, first-year head coach going through fall camp, getting ready for the opener September 3rd against Southeastern. Aaron Kelton joins us here on 3 and Out. Coach, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. First go-round here for fall with you guys. I saw a comment from you. Hey, you're about 50-50 returning guys, new guys. Obviously, you got an open competition at quarterback. Where are you at, I should say, in kind of meriting all that out here with still a couple of weeks to go?
We got a couple weeks to go. We're trying to get equal reps. School started now, so time gets cut back a little bit for practice, but all those guys are competing. JT and Isaiah right now, I would say, are the two guys out front. JT's a returning guy. Isaiah's a transfer from Hampton University, who we have, and then close behind them is Jaden Adams, who's a young guy who's really done a great job. And so those would be our 3 top guys right now.
Coach, what are your top priorities here in fall camp right now?
Really, it's about building culture and building some continuity in the team. Getting to know each other. Like I said, we were 50-50 so with the roster and the changes, and so it's really getting to know each other, right? What's the guy next to me about? Okay, in order for me to be able to trust somebody, I got to know him, and so that's what we try to do. Is we've done a lot of different exercises and things with the team to just get to know each other, and then for the freshmen, the guys coming in, that's a whole different bunch, right? And they've got to get to know us and know us coaches and just get to know the program and what we're about.
I hear you mention a lot about the culture. Obviously, X's and O's, you understand schemes, but is that the hardest thing for a player to understand? Like, listen, we're going to coach you hard, but as you talk about knowing the guy who you playing next to, knowing why they are who they are, why they do what they do, is the culture part of football harder than actual teaching the game of football?
Yeah, it really is, because one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch, right? Like, it's true in that way. If the culture isn't something that can sustain the adversity and the different things that you go through as a program, you'll have flashes of good things happen, but you won't build the consistency that you want to have a really great program.
Aaron Kelton joining us here, Savannah State head coach. Coach, where do you feel the strength of your team is? Obviously, a lot of good players from last year, 8-2. I know you're changing the offense a little bit, but where do you feel you are the strongest right now?
Defensive line is probably our best and most talented group of guys, with the guys we had returning, and then bringing in a couple young guys, but also we managed to get a couple transfers on the D-line as well and bolster that unit. So that unit's pretty deep. I mean, it's a solid 2-deep unit, probably goes as deep as 10 on that unit. And then I think that we're talented at receiver, but those guys don't have a lot of catches, right? And so it's trying to get them the ball, get them to be able to be the explosive players they are, and still block, run, do all the things they're supposed to do, when they're out on the field.
What are your goals for this offense? Again, going to be a little bit different than what has been the case. What are your goals for what you hope to see out of that unit this fall?
One of the things that we talked about as a staff is how we're going to continue to generate offense, right? Because one thing you've got to do when you're making changes, you're coming out of a different style. We'll still be ball control, but we're going to take some vertical shots and use the ability of the guys that we have. But we want to take pressure off the quarterback and not have the quarterback feel like he's got to win the game, And so for us, we want to be balanced. We want to be pretty balanced in terms of what we do, but get the ball into playmakers' hands who can continue to move the chains, get first downs for us. We realize we're not going to score on every series, but put ourselves in a good position where we're able to move the football up and down the field and let the scores come as they come. So,
Coach, from fall camp, that's when that physical demand is on all the bodies of all the players. They got to psych themselves up, getting ready for every single practice. The most juice you're going to hear is coming from the guys without pads on. But how do you make sure that those seniors understand that, look, I expect you guys to lead the way physically, but you got to get these young guys ready to play in ways that only players can help players do it?
Well, that's what I told them at the very first meeting. I said a coach-led team is a good team, but a player-led team is a great one, And so I've talked to them about that. I give them opportunities to share experiences, share their knowledge of playing, right, with the young guys, because the young guys are walking around. They're just running all over the place because they don't know what to do, And so it's really giving them time to express who they are and share with the team the things that have been successful for those players who are successful in returning and have a lot of experience. And then, I give them a chance to lead. I try to show them the example, but I give them a chance to lead. And then if we need some correction to happen from what they've said, then we correct it. But I give them a chance to voice their opinions to those guys because they're in the locker room with them every day. They're lining up with them every day. You know, they want to talk to them about, I mean, they get up and talk to them about, hey, don't drive to class because you're going to get tickets. You know, I mean, they're talking to them about everything that they can. But also, it's about the foundation that we laid in preseason to say, hey, this is what we're about. You know, our motto this year is Spike Lee. And people don't understand what it means, but it's do the right thing. Okay. And so that's how our guys walk around. They say, hey, Spike Lee. You know, we're doing the right things, you know, on the field, off the field, in the community, in the classroom. That's how we're going to be a successful program.
Aaron Kelton, Savannah State head football coach, joining us. You've got a home opener coming up in a couple of weeks. How excited are you for that? And then what week 2, an ESPN appointment to have the Tigers on there?
Yeah. So we're really excited to open the year at home. It's going to be they're a good club, so it'll be a good challenge for us. They're coming off of an 8-2 season as well. But to have a home game, be able to sleep in your bed the night before and really go through your routine is something that I think our young ball club is going to need. But I expect it to be a really good game, and then to be on a short week the next week, playing on a Thursday night up at Benedict. You know, that's exciting, especially being on the ESPN national TV, and then having guys like you guys covering us. And, you know, I mean, these young guys don't know what's coming their way, right? And so, but the program is really excited about all that we're going through right now.
We've talked about this on the show, but Coach, during fall camp, at what point do you transition from, okay, we're going through install, we're getting ready for the season at large versus, okay, now we're specifically getting ready for game 1. Maybe we're looking ahead to game 2. How do you manage the last couple of weeks of fall camp?
Well, yeah. And, you know, with school having started Monday, you know, we broke camp Sunday night and we talked as a staff, and we're probably going to, towards the end of this week, start to do some of our installs and get into the first prep stuff for Southeastern as we finish up. You know, we pretty much got all of our base stuff in. Now we're getting ready to go to the special stuff, the specialty stuff that we do in the different packages. And so that's when we'll start to install. We'll also start to get into some segments of practice, third down, goal lines, red zone kinds of stuff, and add those things into practice so we can start to address them. So I think that the end of this week will be when we start, and that'll give us a good solid, 10 to 12 days of consistently going through and preparing for Southeastern.
And Coach, I mean, the profile of college football is changing. The profile of HBCUs are changing now. When you look at guys like yourself, guys like Dion, guys like Eddie George, you guys are bringing HBCUs. Not you bringing it back to what a lot of us already knew, but talk about always saying, yeah, man, I'm the head coach of Savannah State, but I also understand being an HBCU, we're making sure the reputation of HBCUs is being looked upon as we're great institutions. We just play good football here. Talk about kind of like, having that distinction as well, because I put you in there with all the guys that I see, the Deions, the Hugh Jackson. You guys are doing something. Listen, I didn't go to an HBCU. I did myself a disservice, Coach. Please forgive me for that. But at the same time, talk about, carrying that torch as well. Understand the HBCUs and the reputation of it seems to be getting higher and higher every day.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, to be leading this program. And it certainly will be an honor to lead the Tigers out on the field on the 3rd and every weekend after that. The biggest thing for us is that we continue the legacies that have been built over the years and the people that care about these institutions, and the people that, what we're trying to do is bring more exposure, more enlighten people of the great institutions that are there, to get rid of the stigmas and things that used to come with attending an HBCU for college type athletes, okay, and for high school coaches, for them to not look at us as, hey, you can always go there. We're making it so now, we're going to be a choice school for people, right? We're making it so that it's important that they know that we're out here, okay, and doing all we can. That we put the same hours, the same types of kids into these classrooms and on these fields, and that the football level is great, and that they're going to get the best of all they can out of life at our school. And so that's what we preach. That's what we're talking about. It's a great time to be at an HBCU, and a place like Savannah State. I don't think you can get any better. Like I told the team, we're Savannah's team. Okay, we are. There is nobody else for us to have competition with in Savannah. Okay, now yeah, Statesboro's up the road, but that's Statesboro. We're in Savannah, and so let's make us the best team that's going, out on the field every Saturday, and we're going to be the best game in the country in our program every single Saturday that we're stepping on the field. I don't care who's playing, but with Savannah State's playing, that's going to be the best game in the country to us, and we'll deal with the rest of them later. And so that's the attitude we have, and we just want our guys to take that pride out on the field with them every day and represent it in everything they do. So,
Aaron Kelton, Savannah State head football coach, 9-3, September 3rd, Southeastern University. It all gets started right there at home. Coach, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Guys, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. And anytime, you need me to come on, I told you I'm here for you. So thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate it. Aaron Kelton, Savannah State head football coach, joining us here on 3 and Out. We're coming right back all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. A lot to get to coming up in hour number 2. Jake Roos, Dogs HQ, will join us. We'll talk Georgia football with him. Also, Rich Stiles, Back Nine Boys Golf Show. Apparently, a big golfer convention or something going on with Tiger Woods coming in, trying to rally everybody together to stick with the PGA Tour. We'll talk to Rich about that coming up in just a little bit. But let's go to the phones here quickly. We got our guy AC on the line. AC, what's happening?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking my call.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It feels like I didn't talk to you guys forever. Stop doing this to me. Let me ask you a question about Ed Orgeron, and I'm going to try my best to do Ed Orgeron impression. I'll try my best, but I cannot promise anything. My question is, where do you guys see awesome Ed Orgeron landing a head coaching job? Is it college or the NFL and just a team? And here goes my impression. We coming. Bring back it in. The Tigers. He's out.
That wasn't bad, AC. That was not bad. That was not bad. Ed Orgeron impression. Go Tigers. I don't know. Is Ed Orgeron going to coach again? I mean, he's obviously getting paid.
It is. He
had a nice contract from
I could
LSU.
be wrong. I think there's 0% chance that Ed Orgeron going to coach in the National Football League as a head coach. Because, I mean, you have to delegate stuff. You can't just walk around saying, hey, what are you doing over there? You're going to have to talk.
You got to keep your shirt on, too.
Yeah, you got to keep your shirt on. I mean, you got to, you're not judging guys' shirt colors with, their masculinity. Can you whoop them and beat them up and stuff? But Ed Orgeron is good for football, college football. And I do think that his resume, BJ and Kevin, is better than most. I mean, he got a natty. 2019 going to be his claim to fame. I mean, everywhere Jimbo go, he tells people 2013. Jimbo, what? So all I'm saying is I do think he's good, but it's going to have to be a school that I don't think it could be as high profile as the LSU again, because it has to be somebody that wants to be able to have a face that can help with recruiting. But I do think he's good with football. I just think that they won't talk about his past until he comes back up in the present as a head coach, and we got to see the resume. And I don't know if a compliance department want to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll see him anytime soon. I mean, like you mentioned, if you're getting paid, and
I mean, I think LSU is still
coaching,
giving him a few dollars.
I mean, what? Gene Chizik still getting checks from Auburn. So I mean, come on, man.
What is that message there? What did Ben just say about standing? Sounded like a good quote. That from Thomas.
That don't sound like a good quote. Am I getting some love over here?
A message on Facebook
about standing. Sound like a good quote. I don't know. Thomas, I'm sorry. I'll try to think about it again.
What did you say?
What did I say?
I don't know. What did you say?
What I said about standing? What? I don't know. Thomas, tell me what I said. I'll try to say it again.
Well, I think he wanted to have it for himself, and you don't even remember what you said. He was
like writing down the quote. I mean,
yeah.
I said, did I just say it? I don't. I'll think about it in the break.
Kevin can go back and find it during the break.
Go back and listen to
Kevin
it.
can find it in the break. Hey man, I mean, hey, no, stand up and get ran the hell over. I don't know what I said, but I'll figure it out in the break.
Take 3 coming up next. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We have solved the mystery. Ben remembers what he said. Actually, you didn't remember what he said. We had a listener point out what you said.
The homie can't. Yeah.
So we had a comment at the end of the last hour from Thomas on Facebook saying, "What did Ben say about standing?" Question mark. Sounded like a good quote, to which Ben said, "I don't know what I said." And now we do remember what you said. What did you say?
I say you either standing tall or you standing still. So I mean, I appreciate Kent. I say, listen, talk a lot of trash on this show. I appreciate when I say some things that are actually meaningful. So Thomas, listen, I appreciate it. At least you wasn't asking me to do math, which is not allowed on this show.
Standing tall, or you're standing still.
Yes, sir.
That being said, no math, but we will take 3 here on 3 now.
Please, no math.
There are 3 questions. I'm saying there are 3 questions that we have. 1, 2, 3. Take 1. What is an underrated college football rivalry? I asked that in the text that we're in the middle of the Braves and Mets. People say, hey, people always talk Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Giants, Braves, Mets. Good underrated rivalry nationally. What's an underrated college football rivalry?
Okay. The one I'm going with, I think people in the South know, okay, and in the SEC know, but I still think about the Egg Bowl. And the Egg Bowl, I would guess, when you go around the country nationally, maybe outside of the Deep South, and you say, okay, top rivalry, I think people would go through 8, 10, 15 rivalries before they get to the Egg Bowl. And that game just means so much. And what's kind of even more impressive about it, it's easy for a rivalry to have a lot of passion and focus on it when you're playing for national championships, Alabama or Auburn or Michigan or Ohio State, or back in the day, Florida State, whatever. Well, you haven't necessarily had a ton of that with Mississippi State, Ole Miss, but that is the game. I mean, people talk about, Army and Navy, and this is the one we want to win, and everyone, Mississippi State wants to beat Ole Miss wants to beat Mississippi State. That's a rivalry that goes back over 100 years. That's a rivalry that has an awesome trophy. Again, it's a golden egg. It's the Egg Bowl. So I think that one, here's how you know a rivalry really matters. If both teams are 3-9, is it still a sellout? Is the passion still there? Does each side desperately still want to win, even if it's not on, primetime ABC or ESPN? And look, both of these programs have had, very good years in recent years. So there have been recent matchups where it's been a nationally ranked pairing. But, I think Ole Miss, Mississippi State is up there. I think the Egg Bowl around the country is underappreciated.
What's underappreciated is a nice rivalry here in our state. And I'm talking about GSU versus GSU. They call it modern day hate. Now, Georgia State has only been around. Georgia State football has only been around since like 2010, and they only played Georgia Southern 8 times. Well, guess what? Georgia State is up in that rivalry 5-3. All I'm saying is you don't appreciate it. BJ, Georgia Southern got to talking trash to Georgia State. It's, because we knew, yeah. And everything was cool, right? Everything was cool. And then Georgia Southern wanted to say something to Georgia State. Well, Georgia State is kind of half their way, and it's called modern day hate. I like the fact that I was at a symposium here a couple of months ago, and I met a young man there that went to both Georgia State. He attended Georgia Southern and Georgia State. And I said, I asked him, I said, what's the real GSU? He said, he said Georgia State. He said, why? He said, seriously? He said, yeah. He said, this is what he told me. He goes, he said, Atlanta. Yeah. Statesboro. Yeah. Enough said. Walked off. I said, yeah, but he said, Georgia Southern got good football. He said, but Georgia State got better football. He said, well, he's just going over the rival. It's called modern day hate, meaning Georgia Southern, you ain't have to say that to him. You could have left it alone, right? But yes, give me modern day hate, GSU versus GSU. When I-16 turns into I-75, or however you want to look at it, they don't like each other. One guy they say, oh man, we all play in the old Braves Stadium. Beat us then.
Yeah,
if you don't like it.
I like to dub that one the rivalry that never should have been. It really shouldn't have been.
Yep.
Like you said, if you go back and remember how the song got started, if Georgia Southern fans just say nothing, you're Georgia Southern, and it comes up on this game, and you start going back and forth about this, that, and then you lose. And then you start going back and forth, and you lose again. The next year, I think they start out like 1-2 against Georgia State, and all of a sudden it's on. I understand it makes the football good, but this thing should have never been a rivalry. You're Georgia Southern. You had the national championships coming up. You came in and played well right from the jump in the Sun Belt, And then here comes Georgia State, who a few years before had Bill Curry, a football, a helmet, and a dream. That's it. Why would you poke them? You don't need to. You don't need to. It's a rivalry that never should have been. And in my case, you had a perfectly fine one going on with App State, and for some reason, you tried to stick in the eye on Georgia State. For some reason, why would you do that?
It's good for the Sun Belt, though.
It is good for the Sun Belt. I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, this thing should have never been a rivalry. I mean, I guess it was bound to happen geographically, but I feel like if Georgia Southern just went out there and took it, it would have had a hard time getting off the ground as like one of the big rivalry games. Because again, Georgia Southern fans keep going back. Oh, you play in the Brave Stadium. There's 8 people there. Yeah, and you keep losing to them. Like that. Like quit doing that. Like I said, quit poking them for no reason. Like everybody sees there's 8 people at the game. Like you don't need to keep then you lose to them. Then you lose again. And the joke turns around on you at that point. That's all I'm saying. But underrated. I forgot the question. Underrated rivalry. I got sidetracked about that.
Is that your answer? Or did you
No. I was going off of what Ben said there. Underrated rivalry. I'm trying to think.
Confirm. I'm giving you time to think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one.
The take 3
I
questions,
did not.
but did not
Yes.
answer the take
Hey,
3
if Ben can't remember what he said,
Can't do it.
then I can get a minute to think about my own answer here. I mean, there's so many games that I think are good
for you. We were trying to talk about.
I would say underrated because it never really has worked out that both sides win. But I would say Bedlam is pretty underrated, I think. I know it's a big one, but like Oklahoma State never wins when it matters.
But it's always like 59, 50.
Right, I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying? But like it's never had that, hey, if Oklahoma State finally wins, they're going to the national championship or whatever. Like it's been a big game, but it hasn't, to me, it's never been what the Iron Bowl is or something. Like it's good, but it hasn't had that cachet. It's just, hey, this is when it matters. Oklahoma's going to beat them, and Mike Gundy's going to go, well, we almost had him.
Yeah,
what?
He said, well, Mike Gundy said, if we lose, I'm going to cut my mullet. Well, you don't got to worry about cutting. It'll be fine.
All right, moving along. Take 2. Which Braves newcomer has impressed you the most? Obviously, Vaughn Grissom, first major league player in 30 years to score a run in his first 6 games. First Braves player in 100 years to do it. Michael Harris, Spencer Strider.
They've all been great. I think I have to go with Michael Harris. I think the consistency, and I think Spencer Strider's right there, and Vaughn Grissom, like you said, making his own history. I mean, all 3 of those guys, amazing. But Michael Harris, and we had guests come on and tell us, I believe Gaurav Vidak came on and said, watch out, this guy's about to be the truth. And what's been amazing to me about him is the consistency, right? I mean, even for the best players in baseball, you're up, you're down, you'll have, a series where you have 7 hits, and then you'll have a series where maybe you strike out 7 or 8 times. Michael Harris has been so consistent. It's every game. It's offensively and it's defensively. And keep in mind, with the Duvall injury, I mean, Atlanta needed some help in the outfield and needed more than just kind of contributions. Ozuna can't play in the field. Michael Harris has really helped save your season in a number of respects. And not only has it been consistent, not only has it been offense and defense, but big plays, big moments. You need a double. The other night, you need a home run to tie it up against Miami. It's Michael Harris, and kind of gives you a leadoff hitter at the bottom of the lineup ahead of Acuna. I mean, and look, Strider, I don't know if this is still the case after last night, but wasn't he like one of the major league leaders in strikeouts per inning? I mean, so
strikeouts per 9. Yeah.
So Strider's definitely up there. ERA down near 3. Grissom has had about as perfect of a debut as you can have, but just because of the longevity, the consistency, and doing it in the big moments, I will go with Michael Harris.
Listen, I mean, obviously, had a chance to really think about this a little bit longer, stalling a little bit, but love what Grissom is doing. I love what Money Mike is doing, but I think it is Spencer Strider because
it's going with Quadzilla.
Well, yeah, because this is the thing, right? yeah, we got to tell BJ about the whole Quadzilla stuff in the break, but I mean, BJ, that can't be understated when you talk about the most strikeout per inning. You always talk about this, and Kevin, when being a pitcher is the hardest thing to do, maybe in pro sports. When you look at the fact that, look, dude, my stuff got to be on every time I'm at the plate, regardless of the hitter. I got to go out there and trust my stuff. And Strider is the only one that since he's been pitching with the big, he said, hey man, his pitch count is already going more pitches he's ever thrown. So Look, I'm
and he,
finding
and he was still great last night.
yes.
Yeah.
And the thing about the pitcher is everything I do, some of his best games, he didn't win the game because whoever came in it wasn't because of Spencer. I said I jinxed him one time, Spencer. I said it, I apologize. But he's been lights out. And he's trying to make sure that once this playoff roster come on, hey man, I'm a part of that rotation. And I got to show that love Money Mike and what he's doing. Love Grissom and what they're doing. But pitchers are not a dime a dozen around here, people. To find great pitching, I mean, it's very, very rare. And he's doing it as a rookie on a team that matters, that's trying to catch these pesky Mets to go back. So I'm going to go with Quad feeling himself, Spencer
I
Strider.
would say Spencer Strider for me as well. One, because he throws 100. And so when you throw that hard, people are like, well, dude, just go up there and throw 100 every time. And there are guys that throw hard that aren't good pitchers. We've seen it. A lot of guys, hey, he can throw a 100, 101. Well, he can't throw strikes, or he doesn't have anything else to fall back on. I think we've seen the development of Spencer Strider as a pitcher. I think it's been more impressive recently because he's blowing through that innings wall that he's never been past, and he's still continuing to get the job done. Maybe you're worried about that a little bit, that at some point the arm just gets tired and he falls off. But right now he is pushing through. I mean, you are throwing 100 miles an hour every single game. That is impressive, and he's being effective with it. I'm going to lean towards Spencer Strider there. All right. College football right around the corner. If you have one college football destination, and it could be a place you've already been for this purpose, but if you had a bucket list college football destination to go to, you can only go to one bucket list, even if you've been there. For somebody who has been to nowhere, how about that? What's your bucket list number one college football destination either you want to go, or you would say if you go nowhere else, you got to go there?
For me, and I've talked with my family about this, about, my dad was in the service for a long time. My brother is. I would love to be able to go to Army Navy. That's one game I've not been to. I think it's the greatest rivalry in college sports, and you're talking about two programs that not only have that defining rivalry in college football, and the sacrifice and just the incredible service that it all is, but you're talking about just on the field from a football perspective. These have been really good teams. I mean, these have been really good teams, and I think the chance to appreciate the service, the pageantry, the tradition, the history, the chance to go to Army Navy, I think would be one. I got to get to Army Navy one day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're about to get ready to come over to the SEC. I mean, the Red River rivalry. I mean, I've seen it so much. I see how crazy it can be, and I like two teams and two fan bases that have a genuine dislike for each other. Like, and the games obviously been good. Oklahoma's going to win the game, but I think that for me, these are certain things that you just to me are just a part of the pageantry known as college football. Like the Red River rivalry. I know it's going to be a part of the SEC here soon, but to just see, what that Sooner, I don't even know what that Sooner Red or whatever you want to call it, the Sooner Maroon looking, whatever.
Oklahoma fans are going to come after you.
What Sooner, what is it? Well, I know it's that burnt orange. I know I got that right. I know I got the burnt orange.
The other team.
But
I think it's like cream and crimson.
Cream and crimson. Cream and crimson. I mean,
there already is some
come at
crimson
me,
in
bro.
the SEC.
I mean, listen, add biscuits and gravy. I tell y'all, holla at me. I'm ready. I stay ready. No, I think the Red and just for the, like I said, like you said, BJ, certain things you just want to say, man. I had a chance to go to one, and I know that these are the type of games to where all you need to go is one. It's gonna live up to it, no matter what, rain or shine. It's gonna live up to it. So for me, it'll be the Red River rivalry.
I think maybe Georgia fans would back me up on this one. I haven't been there. I think it would be cool. To me, it would be a one-time trip, because why else are you going to Indiana? Notre Dame. I think you just go tailgate with the Irish fans. You got Touchdown Jesus out there. You got a whole bunch of Irish fans going nuts. I think that would be a cool college football trip that probably everybody should get to do. I know a lot of Georgia fans had that on their bucket list. We're like, hey, Georgia may never go to Notre Dame ever again. Like, you just don't know. And that was one of those where I think it was a real special trip for a lot of people. I would put that on the college football bucket list. Go Notre Dame, Touchdown Jesus, and soak up a game.
I would also
there.
add, and Ben can speak to this, of course, but I would also say for college football fans, you got to get to Florida, Georgia, or Georgia, Florida, at least once.
See, y'all.
That's all Ben. That's all Ben's got to say. We got to step aside. Let's take three. We do it every day. This time it's 3 and Out. Rich Styles joins us next on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. to have you back. 3 and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll chat with Jake Roos, Dogs HQ, coming up in just a little bit. But a lot going on around the PGA Tour. Our next guest joins us each and every week on the show from the Back Nine Boys, the golf show. Rich Styles joins us. Rich, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, we appreciate you coming on. And I know every week, seemingly, we have something new to talk about that I'm sure the PGA Tour would rather talk. I mean, you're in the middle of the FedEx Cup playoffs here. Yep. And everybody's now talking about, I guess, this big golfers powwow that's supposed to happen there on site. Tiger Woods apparently flying in special to address concerns about the PGA Tour. Obviously, guys leaving. Jay Monahan, the commissioner, could his job potentially be on the line? What do you expect to happen here?
Well, I think the guys are just going to get together and trying to come to an agreement of how they want to handle things as a unit for the future. And I think they all just want to be on the same page rather than, having each player being asked by the media, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen? I just think they all want to get together. It's that important that Tiger is flying in, to make sure that, he has his input into whatever they all agree to. And the future of Jay Monahan may be in the balance. I mean, he is not going to be at the meeting because of the players only meeting. But Jay will be having a meeting with the PGA Tour committee tomorrow. So, we'll see. They may be just meeting to kind of, as I said, come to an agreement, come together, and then get together with Jay tomorrow and say, this is what we want to do. This is where we stand. And we hope that the PGA Tour is going to be behind us.
And Rich, obviously, I mean, Tiger Woods getting on a plane significant. I mean, golfers who aren't playing aren't showing up at the golf tournament, right? He's not going to get on a plane to come talk about what golf balls they're going to use on tour next year. I mean, I know we've had you on every week for months now say, hey, look, Jay Monahan's been reactive, and it's been a slow trickle of talent stepping out of the PGA Tour to go to the Live Tour. I mean, who controls that on that end? I mean, do the players have the wherewithal to say, Jay Monahan, you need to do better, or we need to find somebody else to get the job done?
Well, I think, that if the PGA Tour would have made the changes that they've made, recently last year, it would have been a proactive move. And, now all these moves, it's quite frankly, in my opinion, which I've said to you guys before, it's a reactive move to what Live has done. So they're coming up with a lot more money. They're coming up with a lot more ways for people to be involved and a lot of guys to, make some more money on the PGA Tour, which is what Live is all about, because it's all about the money. So, it's just unfortunate that it comes at this, and whether Jay's the one responsible for this or the PGA Tour group, the higher ups, Jay and his team, that'll be determined, I think, by the discussion that the PGA Tour players are going to have today.
This meeting of the players, Rich, I mean, what specifically are the goals? Is it to come up with, detailed, I guess, an itemized list of things they want from the PGA Tour? Is it to try to have some sort of a consensus on the Live Tour? Is it to try to, as you said, just kind of talk things out? I mean, what do you think the specific goals of today's players meeting may be?
I think it's kind of to unite. I think they all want to get together and say the same thing and be united in whatever share of voice that they want to have from this point going forward. As I said, I think the media has been able to, splinter several of the players and their personal comments and their feelings about what's going on with Live and why this guy went and why this guy didn't go. And I think the whole purpose of the meeting is to, one, unite everybody together, and two, come up with their game plan and then meet with Jay Monahan and say, this is where we'd like to go. This is what we would like to do. And we'd like to see the PGA Tour help us get to that point.
And Rich, obviously, a guy like Tiger Woods, I mean, you're not going to get a bigger voice than that. He is the face of golf. He is the biggest voice in golf. But, having a meeting of the minds when it comes to these players, we know that the Live Tour is not going away anytime soon. Is there any way at a certain point down the road that Tiger Woods, can get a meeting to whether the Live Tour and maybe the PGA Tour try to come to some common denominator? Because some can say The Live Tour is the reason why the guys on the PGA Tour are getting higher purses and making more money. So there has been a benefit from this thing. It's just the fact that Tiger Woods is definitely saying, look, y'all know what my allegiance is, but I'm also a billionaire. When most of these guys are making more money in the next, coming years they've ever made all the years on tour. Is there any way that Tiger Woods can be the saving grace to kind of get these two sides to try to come to some type of common denominator?
Well, I don't know if it's called a saving grace, but I think that, definitely that we could say that Tiger coming to the meeting shows how important this meeting is and how important it is for them to have one voice and one opinion and one response to what is going on and help them move forward as a unit, as a team, to go forward. I think, yes, as I said, what the PGA Tour has done has been a reaction to what Live has done, and Live basically has showed us, hey, these guys want to play for money, and they want to play less. So the PGA Tour, it's interesting because the Live Tour, now they've got to play 14 events. In order to qualify for world ranking points and the FedEx Cup and all the majors, you have to play 15 tournaments on the PGA Tour. So their argument, players that went to Live, that they want to play less, it just doesn't work anymore. And yes, they did go for the money, but they sure did not go to grow the game or play less tournaments.
Rich, something I saw mentioned about it, and again, we just don't know what is to come up, but I've seen some people who cover golf speculate about this, that could Tiger Woods and certain of the top players have the pull to go to the PGA Tour and say, we appreciate everything you've done, but we want an appearance fee. You want us to play some of these tournaments. We'll play for the prize money, but we want you to pay us and get a guarantee to show up and do that. Is that something, as someone who's covered golf, who follows golf, could happen? Would that kind of turn you off as a golf fan? Is that something you could see the top players request of the PGA Tour?
I'm sure it's a possibility. I mean, anything at this point is a possibility because things are changing. I mean, the PGA Tour has changed a lot. It will never be what it used to be. And some say it'll be because of Live, and some will be to say because it inevitably had to happen. So, the PGA Tour has been what it's been for many, many years. And a lot of the top executives have made a lot of money and bonuses from what has happened on the PGA Tour. And now the players want to get part of those proceeds, which I think they deserve because they're the ones out there doing all that work. And yes, I mean, anything is possible at this point because what has happened in the past will definitely not be what will be in the future.
Rich, bring us up to date with the FedEx Cup. I know there was a playoff over the weekend.
Oh, an unbelievable playoff. And a lot of people would say Live would never have this kind of a playoff and never have this kind of drama. What an incredible playoff. They play 3 holes. Neither guy has ever won a PGA tournament. They've come close. But here you have 2 guys that have not won that are playing in a playoff, and they go through 3 holes and they all par the hole. So they go to the 4th hole of the playoff. They both don't play the ball especially well. Will Zalatoris got an unbelievable break by his ball bouncing on the brick wall several times and then landing. He decided to take a drop because of where Sepp was, and it just made a huge difference. So the bottom line is here they play 72 holes, they tie. They play 3 holes in a playoff, they tie. They go to the 4th playoff hole, and what happens on a par 3 is Will wins with a bogey while Sepp loses with a double bogey. But what drama. I mean, you would just not have that on a Live tournament whatsoever due to their format that they have. But this was a spectacular end to the first FedEx playoff.
Rich Stiles, host of the Back Nine Boys Golf Show, our guest. Rich, who you have coming up this Sunday?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We have Elliot Mello talking about things with Bridgestone Golf, and they have a machine that now can help you guess what kind of golf, not even guess, but tell you what ball you need to be playing. And Gary Williams, formerly of the Golf Channel, is also going to be on with us talking about what we're talking about today. And then we're talking with one of the VPs of Club Car, Mark Raquel, about what's new in golf parts and what may be in the future. They may be driving themselves. You never know.
Tune in Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Rich Stiles, Back Nine Boys Golf Show. Rich, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Oh, I got Tiger on the other phone. I'll call you later.
All right. Rich Styles, host of the Back Nine Boys Golf Show, our guest here on 3 and Out. And again, as the PGA Tour turns, it's been fascinating. We've got more to come. We'll chat with Jake Cruz, Talks HQ, some college football talk next here on 3 and Out. Good to have you back. 3 and Out, Kevin, BJ, and Ben, the Dogs in Athens, counting down the days till Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks come to Atlanta in that kickoff classic. But the defending champs, a lot of work to do. Joining us here, Dogs HQ, Jake Roos steps in here on 3 and Out. Jake, welcome. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, appreciate you coming on. I know a lot of storylines around this Georgia program, but one that's been interesting the last couple of days, 2 young guys at the running back spot just came in. I've been catching a lot of eyes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've heard really positive things about both of these young guys. Branson Robinson, obviously, I think everybody had high expectations for this young man coming in, given how he's built, given how he runs, just what he's able to do. I think that he's everything you're looking for. But, Andrew Paul, I think, has really opened some eyes and surprised some people with what he's been able to do in this fall camp. Looks like a great late find by the Bulldogs, a great late reel-in, and another solid evaluation by Dell McGee. I think that this is a kid who looks like he can bruise in the same ways, a little more agile than people may have been giving him credit for. So a lot to love about this young man's game. I think that both of those guys, sounds like maybe contributors sooner rather than later.
Obviously, Stetson is the guy. What a season. How have some of the reserve quarterbacks looked?
I think that it's a situation where they're still battling it out, trying to find that mix behind those guys. I think behind Stetson, is it Carson Beck? Is it Brock Vandegrift? I think that that battle will rage on probably throughout the season, and I think that you'll see both of those guys get ample reps. I mean, I think that they know, this is Stetson's last go-round, so you got to find your heir apparent. I think you'll see both of those guys get ample opportunity to show that they are that guy moving forward. It'd be interesting to see how it plays itself out. I think, with Beck, you saw what he did in the spring game. I think with Vandegrift, maybe it's a little bit more of the unknown of the two, but a guy with, some great high school tape, and a guy certainly with huge expectations around him coming out. So going to be a fun one to watch, and I think that Georgia has a couple of guys back there who can step in if needed.
Offense kind of got the best of the defense in a recent scrimmage. I know that Kirby Smart prides himself on that defense. How much of a learning curve is this defense going to go through? I mean, obviously 15 guys to the draft last year, 5, coming in the first round off of that defense. How much is the offense kind of going to lead the way a little bit while the defense kind of get their footing? They got the talent, but replacing that much talent is going to be hard for anybody to do.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that it's not a matter of talent; it's a matter of the learning curve, and I think that you're gonna get to that learning curve real quick. That's gonna be week 1. I think that they'll figure it out very fast, or you'll have some serious concerns. I think that, like you said, there's a bunch of guys who left this, talented guys. We could name any number of them, but I think the guys coming in behind them are similarly talented, if maybe not even higher ceiling. But it's really there's no replacement for doing it when the lights are on, when the band's playing. That's what these guys are up against. Luckily, they have some experienced guys at some key spots who played a lot of snaps, but I think that depth is a little less experienced than you'd prefer it to be. Going to be interesting to see how that plays itself out, and as you said, how those guys are able to figure it out and how quickly. Jake,
just to follow up, do you think it will take that defense to kind of get up to speed? Some key returning guys, as you said, but a lot of guys going to the NFL. But people forget the guys that are stepping in are uberly talented, just didn't get near the reps that the guys last year got. How long do you really feel like these guys on the defensive side feel it's going to take for them to get fully up to speed and comfortable with what they run out there?
Well, like I said, it better not take long. I think they got about 2 weeks to figure it out because, Oregon's going to come in with some tremendous skill players. I mean, the West Coast is loaded with some of the nation's best, and Oregon's had their fair share, certainly. So I think that it won't – I don't think it's going to take long. I think that these guys are practicing against similarly talented players day in and day out in Georgia practices. So, if they're able to take that step forward in practice, especially by the end of this fall camp, then you got to feel good about their curve. But, like I said, when you do it with the lights are on, I think that that's a whole different ball game. Be interesting to see if those guys are ready for week 1, regardless of how these next couple of weeks go in camp.
Georgia has 3 star tight ends, of course. How often are we going to see all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time?
They haven't given us really any indication, but I think you've got a real shot of seeing that with some frequency. I think that, but because of those guys and their multiple nature, you're able to line Eric Gilbert up as a receiver. I think Brock Vandegrift, Brock Bowers, a guy that you're certainly able to put out there and split out wide. Darnell Washington, maybe a little bit more of an inline guy, but from any perspective, I think that Georgia has a chance to be dynamic with that trio, and I think that that's the name of the game in today's college football world, is being dynamic. You can have all the talent in the world, but can you adjust as necessary? I think that those three guys provide you with so many options, so many looks, that they're going to be hard-pressed to keep them off the field in trio, I think, very often.
Jake, how much of the running game is going to play a part in that offense this year? Obviously, stats have been improved for you last year. That he can obviously be that staple on the offense. We're having a star now, Brock Bowers, as you just mentioned. But how much more is the run game going to take some of that pressure off of Stetson? Obviously, he's proved to be extremely durable since he's been at Georgia. But you can't expect him to just stand in the pocket, every game. How much can that running game become more of a complement to the passing game this fall?
I think they've got a real chance to do that. I think that they've got a couple real talented guys. I think Kenny McIntosh can play that role that James Cook did, if not more, this year. I think that Kendall Milton can be your Zamir White. I think people very much, and have throughout his career, underestimate Daijun Edwards. He's a guy that I'm really high on and think that can make a significant contribution. So, and then we mentioned two young guys early in the show. I think that Georgia's 5 deep back there, and I think we'll see all 5 of those guys used at various times. I think each has a little different skill set, and I think that that's going to be allow them once again to be multiple, and I think that that's advantageous. And like you said, we'll take some pressure off of that passing game.
Jake Roos, Dogs HQ, joining us here on 3 and Out. Jake, I know you do a lot of recruiting work there for Dogs HQ, and you look at the class that just came in. You mentioned some of the running backs. Are there other guys in one of the top? I mean, obviously they've recruited extremely well, that have a chance to come in and play significantly right away here for Georgia.
Malachi Starks, I think, definitely jumps off the page just because of the opportunity I feel like you have at safety there. Replacing Lewis Dean, is Dan Jackson the guy that's going to be able to hold him off? I think that he's a very serviceable player, but, Malachi, I think with a higher ceiling, I think that he's got a chance to be an impact maker. You're going to be looking for pass rush always. I think Michael Williams is a guy who can help you in that regard and provide some of that. I think Jalen Walker is the guy to watch out for in the middle of the defense. You're replacing 3 guys there. I think they have an opportunity to really get out there and make some noise with him. They're looking for depth in the middle, and Jalen Walker is a great option there. So I think that all of those guys are very capable of, seeing an expanded role from what people may be expecting from them.
In terms of looking ahead to 2023, what's the latest with Georgia on the recruiting front there?
Everything's sitting really well right now. Georgia with a real nice class, the number 3 in our own 3-team rankings. They feel good about where they stand, I think, have addressed some big needs, pulled in 3 great linebackers in this class, a couple good wideouts. I think that, overall it's shaping up to be a really nice class. You haven't found maybe that centerpiece guy just yet, but, guys are taking it a little further than they would have in the past in this NIL era. I think that guys are exploring options a little more deeply, considering so many other factors. So, they've got a fight on their hands down the stretch. I think right now you're focused on reeling in some big fish, and I think that this has a chance to be another tremendous cycle for Georgia. It's certainly sitting that way right now. I don't think that they're going to slack up on that at all.
I mean, Georgia coming off a national championship. Kirby Smart, stated at SEC media days they will be the hunt. Well, they will be the hunters, not the hunted. How has his temperament been? To think about Kirby, obviously big time contract extension this offseason, well deserved. But he seems to be a guy that understands that all eyes going to be on Georgia, whether they win the national championship or not. Obviously, they're coming off one. How has been his temperament thus far in fall camp?
I think that those guys are similarly hungry, and I think that Kirby has instilled that. I think that the bar's been set, and so those guys want to match up to it. I think that they've seen what this can do for their careers and how this can help them moving forward, and I think that they want to be a part of that and continue this legacy that was created last year and that so many guys were around last year. So, I think that they are taking that mentality. I don't think that there's any complacency with this group. I think Georgia's doing an outstanding job of keeping these guys motivated, keeping them focused on the goal, and really just kind of moving into this year as a fresh slate, not a, hey, we were the national champions.
Jake Roos, Dogs HQ on the On3 Network. Jake, we appreciate the time. Thanks much.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Jake Roos joining us here on 3 and Out. The countdown is on to Oregon They're in Mercedes-Benz to get the college football season started off in a big, big way. We've got more to come. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Just got word. Mike Norvell going to join us Friday on the show. Correct? Friday. FSU head football coach, and they've made some 9-1-2 inroads the last several years.
Yeah, you have Kalen DeLoach there. You have Winston Wright there. You have a couple of Tavion Gadsden and Luke Cromenhawk from Savannah committed to Florida State. It's a big year for Florida State. I think they're expecting improvement. You have a lot of guys back. You were able to be very active in the transfer portal. I think you expect to be better at the line of scrimmage offensively, which for the last few years has been sort of a question mark for Florida State. Ben, I know you're a big fan of the quarterback, Jordan Travis, and what he's been able to do.
I mean, Ben just loves the Seminoles in general.
I mean, Ben was walking me through it earlier. Ben was walking me through it earlier. He likes players and student athletes, and then he gets into who his team is, and we know
you don't get upset about their choice in athletic apparel.
Look at the rankings we have every day on the show. We know who his team is, but you have some guys. I mean, I think Travis is going to have a big year. I think Kalen DeLoach. A lot of people are expecting big things from him. Was very productive at the end of last year throughout his career. I think he had an interception in the game at Florida. If Winston Wright is fully healthy, and we're wishing him the best, I think he's going to be a big impact player. You were able to bring in some big time transfer additions, and I think you have a little more experience. So a chance that Florida State takes a step forward this year.
I think they're going to have to. I think Mike Norvell understands now. The honeymoon is over. I think when you're looking around what's going on in college football, what's going on
Do you even get a honeymoon in Tallahassee the way they've done it the last few coaches?
I think what benefited a guy like Mike Norvell is kind of like what they didn't give. They didn't give Willie Taggart the same they didn't give him the same level of patience, I would say. And the thing is, you don't want to keep you see what happens. Consistency and programs are tied to how long the coach has been there. The best teams have the same head coach there for multiple years, usually. And I think what's happening with a guy like Mike Norvell, you're looking around. You look at what Mario Cristobal is doing, at Miami. Now, he's winning right now in recruiting. I mean, because a team like the team like Florida State, they all want to be judged on what Miami's doing, what Florida's doing, right, wrong, and different, whether that's recruiting, whether that's winning, whether that's, because the thing about it is, BJ, Florida State, they don't suffer in the recruiting side. They do not. They still recruit very, very well. That's going to have to turn into wins. And I think what hurts Florida State is not Miami, it's not Florida, it's Pitt and Wake. You got two teams that weren't considered to be, powerhouse going to the ACC championship. So I think for a guy like Mike Norvell, they said, listen, man, even with, the lack of productivity win-wise on the field, you still getting quality players in here. That's going to have to turn into wins because, as you know, BJ, I mean, no matter what, the fans and the alumni and the boosts are going to dictate everything that goes on these college campuses. And I think for a guy like Mike Norvell, starting with week 1, whether it's out of conference game or not, you're going to have to show that you are ready. Because I remember this time last year, BJ, first game, Notre Dame, everybody thinking, oh, can we go and you see how the season kind of went after that. I don't know what it is with Florida State in these first games, but I go back to DeAndre Francois and Alabama. It's crazy, but it's like you're going to need good momentum because
DeAndre Francois was never the same player after that. I mean, we obviously got hurt.
You have LSU in week 2. That game is in New Orleans.
Wow.
So it's technically a home game for LSU. But LSU in New Orleans, and then the ACC is going to be really good. Florida at the end of the year, I believe Louisiana out of the Sun Belt somewhere on the schedule. So there are going to be challenges there, but a lot of returning talent, including some local guys. Kevin, as you mentioned, I think Florida State expects to be better this year.
Yeah, Mike Norvell, he'll join us coming up on Friday here on 3 Now. We got a busy final hour leading you up to Braves and Mets game 2. Hopefully, the Braves get out the belts. We can save the brooms, get out the belts, and just give another spanking out tonight to the Mets. We'll talk about that. But also when we come back, Mike Bratton, SEC Mike, host of That SEC podcast. He will join us. We're talking SEC football with him when we come back. Miles Brennan says goodbye to football and more around the SEC. He joins us next. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, streaming live ESPNcoastal.com, and on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Good to have you here. Final hour of the show. So much to get to. We're talking Braves baseball, game 2 of 4 with those Mets. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit, but we are mere weeks away, less than weeks away to SEC football. I mean, Vandy, Hawaii is a week from Saturday. And if you were watching online, you can see BJ's reaction, stoic, keeping those emotions suppressed for Vandy, Hawaii. But we'll take a lot of SEC football to get to. Joining us, the host of that SEC podcast, SEC Mike Bratton joins us here on 3 and Out. Mike, welcome. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start in LSU. Big news, Miles Brennan done from LSU, done with football. A guy that got a lot of NIL last year, didn't play, and then was told not going to be the starter. How does that change things at all just to not have him on the roster as an option?
Yeah, I think really the only thing that changes is when no one wants to talk injuries, but if LSU suffers an injury, Jaden Daniels or Garrett Nussmeier, they're going to have a true freshman, Walker Howard, as the backup. So, I mean, that's essentially the biggest domino there, but I can't say I'm surprised because Miles Brennan was not factoring in this race as much as I wanted to see him play. I was rooting for him. This had been a two-man race there in Baton Rouge for the last week or so heading into the season.
Staying with LSU, Brian Kelly comes in, obviously a program that expects to compete for national championships. You have a lot of players coming in via the transfer portal, a lot of talent back. What are fair expectations for the Tigers this fall, you think?
Well, you talk to the people down there in Baton Rouge, and they think 10 wins, that's the standard down there. But I'm not quite buying that. I think LSU is going to be, I don't want to say bad because, bad is relative in the SEC West. They could finish 5th or 6th, maybe even 7th in the West and still have a top 30 football team. That division is just so tough. But I think LSU is going to be a lot better by the end of the year than they are at the front. They, of course, open the season with FSU. That's a tricky game. They should win in New Orleans. But I think the standard will be lowered after the first conference game because they're hosting Mississippi State. Really high on Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State wins in Death Valley. And if that happens, I think the fans will come to the realization that, they have a little bit more of a roster rebuild than they anticipate.
Will Anderson, Bryce Young, bring in guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Jermaine Burton. Nick Saban said 2021 was a rebuild year for Alabama after winning the SEC and losing to Georgia in the national championship. So, Mike, how good, should we expect them to be in 2022?
And I hope you're not buying that rebuild talk. I mean, Alabama had the second best roster in the country. They had the Heisman winner. They had the best defensive player. That's just excuses from old St. Nick as we come to anticipate at this point in time. Just like Texas A&M finishes number 1 in recruiting, Nick Saban's got a problem with recruiting now. Crimson Tide got the number 2 class. So I ain't buying all that. I don't think Alabama's going to be this world beater like everyone else. I mean, I get putting them number 1, but they still have questions at receiver, questions on the offensive line, and I ain't buying the hype around their defense being an all-time defense. Nick Saban's lost his edge a little bit when it comes to coaching the defensive side of the ball. I think Alabama's going to surrender a lot more points than people anticipate.
So that being said, Mike, who's the number 2 there that's got the best shot of bumping them off?
In the West or just the SEC?
Oh, well, for right now in the West.
I like Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to have a heck of a team. But, everyone's got A&M circled there, and I get it. But I'm just not a big believer in Jimbo Fisher being a championship-winning coach. I mean, we've got to stop making excuses. He's in year 5 of a rebuild down there. I mean, I thought they were trying to chase championships in College Station. So I just don't have a ton of faith in Jimbo to develop an elite quarterback. But if A&M has an elite quarterback this year, certainly they could factor in that race. But like I said, I like Arkansas to be that number 2 in the West.
How much volatility do you expect in the West? Because as you said, a team that some people may be overlooking, Arkansas is really talented. I mean, how do we quite know what to expect from Ole Miss? How do we know what to expect from Auburn, Texas A&M? I mean, as you referenced, kind of what's happening there. I mean, do do you expect to have a lot of really good teams, but maybe not a second team that's great or a third team that's great? Kind of how do you see the rest, maybe from the middle onto the back of the SEC West?
But yeah, I mean, everyone outside of Alabama's got so many, I don't want to say issues, but everybody's got question marks, and it'll come down to how well they fill those in. But the team that I referenced, you skipped right on over Mississippi State. I mean, they're very, very dangerous. They return more production than anybody in the SEC. Will Rogers already owns every passing record down there. He's got 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. So I think Mississippi State, throw them into the mix, and certainly those teams are going to beat up on each other. But I bet you at least one of them catches Alabama this year. So I don't think Alabama, like I said, I don't think it's just going to run through the SEC by any means. I think if there's one team that's going to be undefeated in the SEC, it's probably Georgia.
Mike, how good do you expect quarterback play to be this year in the SEC, in the West and in the East? I mean, you got Bryce Young, you got Stetson Bennett, Hendon Hooker, Will Levis. I mean, you got guys, all up and down. When you talking about which one of these guys, not named Stetson Bennett, not named Bryce Young, is poised to have the best season this year at quarterback?
I go with my guy KJ Jefferson there at Arkansas. It's a big reason why I'm so high on the Razorbacks. I mean, he was phenomenal last year. I think even with losing Treylon Burks to the NFL, Arkansas has got the number 1 rushing attack in the SEC last year. They bring back 4 or 5 on the offensive line and 3 of their top running backs to kind of shoulder that load a little bit. But I think KJ Jefferson takes his game up to the next level. So I think he's one not enough people are talking about. Spencer Rattler, watch every throw he made at Oklahoma. I think he's a major, major upgrade for South Carolina. I'm not one of these people that's on the Will Levis bandwagon thinking he's going to be a top NFL pick, but he's a solid quarterback in college. And Anthony Richardson, I think, has massive, massive potential for the Florida Gators. So, I mean, this should be a heck of a year for quarterbacks in the SEC.
You look at the SEC East, it's Georgia, defending national champs. They're loaded. They got the quarterback coming back. They got tight ends that are better than some teams' receivers. Who challenges Georgia? Obviously, they were loading a lot on defense. Is there anybody in the East, especially the later in the season it gets and guys get playing time, that can contend with Georgia right now?
Well, I'm already on record. I think South Carolina catches them at home early in the season. So, because I think South Carolina's going to be much improved, but that would be a major, major upset, no doubt. I'm kind of on a limb going out that far, but I don't think South Carolina can win the East or test Georgia overall. Tennessee, maybe, just because of how dynamic their offense possibly is. I mean, they get in a shootout-style game. You never know when Tennessee would have to win the turnover margin by probably 2 or 3 to have any chance of beating Georgia in Athens. I don't see that happening. And again, I'm kind of lower on Kentucky than a lot of people, but who knows? Maybe if things break right, they host Georgia. That's a concern, no doubt. But I got the Gators number 2 in the East, which should kind of give you an indication of how large that gap is between Georgia and the rest of the division.
Georgia replaces just so much defensively, but so much talent coming back still. I know a lot of people said last season's defense, one of the greatest defenses in modern college football history. Do you expect this year's group to be close, or do you think maybe there's a step back or two? What are you expecting from Georgia defensively?
Yeah, I just think it's unrealistic to have them match what they did last year. I mean, I think that is the greatest college defense we've ever seen. So even a step back, they could still be the SEC's best defense, and still it could be a step back. And I think that's what we're going to get. I think Georgia's offense, it's at least it sounds like in camp, the offense is ahead of the defense, which is not a major concern with everything they're bringing back on offense. But I think that's just an indication of not the rebuild, but the reload going on the defensive side of the ball in Athens.
Tennessee got big time expectations this year. Hendon Hooker is going to be the guy. Coach Heupel, you look at what he was able to do with that team last year. Just really more to supersede expectations. Do they sneak up on anybody? You know what type of offense they got? Can they play complementary defense? I know you said you got Florida second in the East behind Georgia. What do them Tennessee boys got something to say about that?
I think Tennessee can compete with everybody. just because of that offense. And if they get red hot, that tempo they go at, the pace, yeah, like I said, even Alabama, even Georgia, I think they could beat. Now, the problem for Tennessee is they just don't have the depth yet. I really don't think they've got some star players, but the drop off between the star players and some of the other players on the roster is pretty massive. And the defense, well, I don't think the defense is quite as bad as people are making it out to be, because they only had about 15 guys that they could trust last fall. I think they'll be a little bit deeper, but they're very, very young on defense. So, they're going to get in a lot of shootout style games, but I just don't think Tennessee week in and week out is going to be one of the upper echelons in the SEC. But they're going to be kind of like Ole Miss last year, where, hey, they could sneak up and beat somebody.
Mike Bratton, SEC Mike, host of That SEC podcast, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Mike, a lot of talk about Tennessee, Georgia, obviously in the East, but what about the basketball school there in Lexington? I know that's a bad word now, but what about Kentucky there? Will Levis, great quarterback. Certainly Coach Stoops has done a tremendous job of keeping them consistent. Are they in a position where if it falls right, I mean, they've played Georgia for the right to go to the SEC championship the last couple of years. Could they do it again?
I mean, you could talk me into that, but I ain't buying it, because they have to go to Florida, they have to go to Tennessee, they host Georgia. I think they're going to be massive underdogs in all those games. I think they're going to lose all those games. Last time they played Ole Miss, they lost Ole Miss. Last time they played Mississippi State, they lost Mississippi State. They got to play those teams. South Carolina, again, I think they're going to be much improved. That game's in Lexington. I still am picking South Carolina to win it this year. So I think Kentucky's going to have a bunch of losses this year. Like I said, I'm not jumping on the Will Levis as a legit NFL quarterback train like so many others are, because I've actually watched him play. I think Kentucky is a good team, but the East, I think, is a lot more competitive than people are giving it credit for. So I actually got Kentucky 5th in the East.
Wow, Mike Bratton, SEC Mike, our guest here on 3 and Out, host of That SEC podcast. Mike, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Mike Bratton joining us here on 3 and Out is a lot. I do think he's right there what he said at the end. The SEC is going to be, I mean, outside of Vanderbilt, the rest of it's going to be more competitive than I think people give it credit for.
Ben, your thoughts on him having Florida second in the East? You haven't heard that from a lot of pundits.
I think a lot of people are putting everything on Anthony Richardson when you see, because people, if he plays the way people think he can, I think he could definitely help his team. But make no mistake about it, BJ, you were talking about what is Georgia defense going to look like? I mean, I think Florida's defense, they got it on all levels. I mean, they got Brenton Cox, they got Javon Dex, they got Ventrell Miller, they got Trey Dean, they got Jason Marshall. And, I mean, I think if those guys can go out there and just do the small things with Coach Patrick Toney, I mean, they talk about Mike Petrie, talk about Corey Raymond, the premier DB coach in the country, it's going to keep them in games. Because one thing BJ, with Coach Billy Napier, they're going to run the ball this year. If you ever seen him coach, he believes in running the football, kind of going to get back to what Georgia used to do, what Alabama used to do, run the football, play action pass with a quarterback that can hopefully get you points in the red zone. I still think it's going to be Tennessee's to win, though, because they got a proven quarterback once he got in there. I think the guy with the biggest upside is Anthony Richardson. And I think Will Levis, I think he has a run game to go along with it. It's going to be very, very competitive because no one's talking about Spencer Rattler. And he might end up being the best out of the bunch if he get back to that vintage Spencer Rattler that we saw 2 years ago. Who knows? But the East, it is going to be extremely competitive.
Yeah, a lot of good quarterbacks there in the SEC East. We've got more to come. Braves and Mets coming up later tonight. We're talking Braves baseball. Good friend of the show, Bud Ellis, going to join us ahead of Game 2 tonight. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Oh, man, it is Braves and Mets part 2 of 4 in this 4-game series coming up tonight. The Braves just reached out and slapped the Mets around last night all across Truist Park and took game 1 of that series. Need to see more of the same coming up a little bit later tonight. And joining us here to help break everything down that's been going on with the Atlanta Braves, who called up another top prospect today. No, it's not Louisiana hot sauce. Veteran Braves writer Bud Ellis joins us. Bud, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
It is great to be on, boys. How we doing today?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. Obviously, the Braves needed that last night in game number 1, but I guess we shouldn't be anymore in, I think, professional sports just in general. But, I mean, amazing that Spencer Strider and Vaughn Grissom and Michael Harris have come up and not only played like they have, but continue to play like they have on a team that matters and perform key roles. I mean, we're seeing more and more young guys do that. In fact, you have 3 guys on one team doing it at the same time. That's been nothing short of unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, I think maybe if there was a little more time left in the season for Vaughn Grissom, the Braves could very well sweep the podium for National League Rookie of the Year, first, second, and third place. And hey, I tell you what, Vaughn Grissom's going to try everything he can, I think, to finish third with the start he's off to. You know, if you look at it just from the standpoint of being 21, 22 years old, coming up to the major leagues and having the type of impact that these guys have, and, you know, we can get into all the stats and all of that, but, you know, I look at Michael Harris, and he's a guy who, from the 7th inning on, has a 983 OPS with 6 home runs. I look at Vaughn Grissom, and I see him draw a 6-pitch walk in the 7th inning on Sunday of a game you're trailing 1-0, and then an 11-pitch walk in the 9th inning as you're rallying to come back and win a game on the road. And then I look at Spencer Strider, who, since moving into the rotation, has a 3.33 ERA, and he struck out 105 hitters in 70 in the 3rd innings. And I mean, that in and of itself is impressive. But then you think about doing it for the defending World Series champions who are trying to chase down arguably one of the top 2 or 3 teams in all of baseball to win their 5th consecutive division title. And it's just mind-blowing. I mean, we talk about slow heartbeat and all the cliches. Well, all 3 of these kids have that. And if it weren't for these 3 kids, I don't think the Braves would be in shouting distance of the Mets for first place here on the 16th of August.
And Bud, you mentioned that we're in a series here with the Mets where obviously a lot is on the line, and you've seen young guys step up, have great moments. Where's this team at in terms of viably chasing the Mets? I mean, do you feel like you need 3 out of 4 here to be in a good position? Are you one of those that, I know Kevin jokes about this, you kind of anticipate the Met meltdown coming at some point down the line? I mean, how important are these next couple of games, and just how invaluable have the contributions been from the young guys, the veterans, and what are you going to need moving forward in this series?
I think, and you cannot expect to sweep a 4-game series, and to say that you have to sweep a 4-game series where you're going to face Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom in half of those games is almost borderline insanity. So with that said, I think I felt coming in the Braves had to win 3 out of 4. And when I look ahead at what the landscape, you know, says over the final 40 games, you know, I don't think people realize, for all the consternation about this Braves team not being in first place, I don't think people realize the Braves are on a 98 win pace, which would be the highest win total of the Alex Anthopoulos era. But the thing is, the Mets are on a 105 win pace. And considering they have 4 with Colorado, they have 2 series left with Washington, they have 3 games with Oakland, they have 2 games with Miami, 3 with Chicago, and 4 with Pittsburgh coming up. The Braves are going to have to play, and I know Braves fans don't want to hear this, the Braves really have to find a way to win 2 of the next 3. And those 3 games, the penultimate series of the season, the first weekend in October, the Braves are probably going to have to win 2 out of 3 of those. And if you put those into the bank, you're still probably going to need some help, or the Braves are going to have to play basically out of their minds for a substantial stretch of the rest of the season. I don't see, unless Scherzer or DeGrom get hurt, or unless Kevin is right, and I'm at the point now where I'm not expecting the Mets to look down and realize their uniform says Mets and do what the Mets have always seemed to do when they've been good for the past 15 years, and that's stumble. This is a really, really good baseball team. And what I've been trying to tell people, especially the last couple weeks, is I think the series in New York was a wake-up call. Last night was awesome. I was there. It was great. You don't have to win 13-1 tonight or tomorrow or Thursday. The Braves have got to find a way to get at least 2 of these wins. You got to take 3 out of 4. You've got the Astros coming in this weekend to Atlanta. The Mets schedule's pretty tough for the next week. But to viably think that you're going to win the division title, I think you've got to get 2 of the next 3, and you're going to have to play really high-level baseball for the next 6 to 7 weeks to have a shot at the end.
But I know we already mentioned, I mean, you talk about the young guys, you talk about, Harris, you talk about Grissom, you talk about Strider. The fact that these guys get a chance to play the way they play in a culture that the Braves have, to where, no, they don't look like rookies because the pressure isn't on them the same. Yes, it's the pressure of being in the bigs. Michael Harris, as soon as he got called up, that's your center fielder for as long as he want to be here. Now people saying, oh, what do you do with Grissom when Ozzie comes back? And Strider, he had to deal with the fact that, look, you guys talking about my pitch count. I'm ready for it. The culture of the Braves is different than anybody you've ever seen. I mean, there was a Mike Soroka sighting on freaking social media land. You forget the fact, oh, dude, Mike Soroka plays for the Braves. Marcell Ozuna still can't play in left field, and they still finding a way to get it done. How do you describe what Snit and Anthopoulos have done? Because we just expect them to win the NL East when everybody knew it was going to be the toughest division of baseball this year.
Yeah, I always think the late, great, Hall of Fame pitcher and longtime Braves broadcaster Don Sutton always had one of my favorite sayings of all. And I actually use it at work, and I've used it with my kids and coaching them growing up, and that's, you have to be a curator of the culture, right? You have to set the culture, and then you have to have everybody kind of fall in line with that. And basically the culture of this organization, and this goes way back to, the Bobby Cox, John Sherholtz days, and what they built that, starting in 1991 is, look, if you can play, if you can help the major league team win, you're going to get that opportunity. There's not many teams that in the midst of a division championship run like the Braves had in 2005 would turn around and play 18 rookies and expect them to, be successful. Well, that's what happened in 2005. Jason Hayward, has a great camp. Would have been very easy in 2010 to send him down, not start his service clock. What does he do? He comes up, he has a signature moment on opening day, goes on to become an all-star, helps the Braves reach the playoffs that year. And then, we've seen it with Alex Anthopoulos. It's kind of the next generation of this. Alex Anthopoulos, the general manager, Brian Snitker in the dugout. Braves need help. They can go into the minor leagues, which maybe isn't as high in the prospect rankings as it once was, because all those guys that had this as one of the top farm systems in baseball are now up here winning division titles and winning a World Series. But when they get to Mississippi, the expectation is that phone can ring. When you get to Double-A in this organization, you're a phone call away from being in the major leagues. And it's just the way the Braves do everything, the way the minor league departments run, the way the scouting runs, the way the coaching and the roving instructors run, and just the way they do things. It is instilled in these kids when they come into the system. There's a certain standard, there's a certain way they go about doing things. But at the same time, what's different from a generation ago is the game has changed. And I think the Braves have evolved that to where guys aren't as buttoned up as maybe they used to be. And I love that. I love the emotion out of Harris, and I love the emotion out of Grissom. First major league hits a homer over the Green Monster. Yeah, I would flip my bat too. The way Ronald Acuna Jr. plays the game, I absolutely love that. And it drives me crazy when people complain about him showing emotion. Let that guy be who he is. And, I think, you've had people through the years in the organization who have kind of set the standard of what's expected. Nick Markakis when the run first started, and Tyler Flowers, and certainly Freddie Freeman. And now, it seems like Dansby Swanson is kind of that
that leader. But at the same point in time, these guys come up here. They're not expected to hit fourth. They're not expected to be the number one starter. They just need to come up here, do their thing, let their natural talents take over. And when that happens, their talents take over, and you see guys who just step right in seamlessly. They're comfortable, they contribute, and they help this team win.
Bud Ellis joining us here on 3 and Out. Bud, just big picture here with the Braves. I know a lot of fans are excited about obviously what they did last year, and the future looks very, very bright. And I know there's kind of this rep out there that the Braves and Liberty Media won't spend money. Well, that's obviously not the case with what Alex Anthopoulos has said. But, Bud, you look at the roster construction, and he's kind of done something that we haven't seen a lot of teams be able to do in this era of Major League Baseball. You either have a lot of prospects or you spend a lot of money to pay for guys, maybe what they were, but are still really good players. He's locked guys up on team-friendly deals. I think of all the guys on long-term contracts, nobody's making more than $22 million in their peak year of salary. You're able to keep guys together for a long time. He's getting deals done with Acuna before they had to give him the money. I know people gripe that it wasn't enough, but didn't have to give him the money, gave him the money. Talk about this team and kind of the myth that the Braves won't spend, and that's obviously what they're doing right now.
Well, that's the thing. People say they won't spend because they want the Braves to go out and they want them to pay $35 million a year for a premium, sexy, big-name free agent. Well, when you're paying Austin Riley no more than $22 million a year through the year 2032, when you're paying Matt Olson no more than $21 million a year, down through I think 2029. We know about the Acuna deal. We know about the Albies deal. I mean, I look at this payroll right now is around $180 million, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there have been plenty of nights this summer where you can't move in the Battery, and you cannot move in the ballpark. I mean, that is the place to be in Atlanta, and throughout baseball, people talk about how the Braves have kind of become the gold standard with what they've built in that complex and the vibe. And of course, it helps to be the defending World Series champions. But you look around that diamond and you see you've got your third baseman and your first baseman and your right fielder and your second baseman locked up long term. And then talking about the kids, well, they're under club control for the next 5-6 years. So you don't have to do anything with them. You have some cost certainty there as well. Certainly arbitration numbers go up. And if Harris and Strider and Grissom, if this is an indication of who they are, they'll never hit free agency. It is really remarkable in a day and age where, just holding on to one or two guys long term chews up, 60, 70, 80, $90 million of your payroll. The fact that the Braves have, so many key components of their roster right now, either locked up on long-term deals or they're so young that they're under club control to where you really don't have to think about a long-term deal for 2 or 3 years. And, oh, by the way, you're selling out every night. You're getting money from the Battery. Payroll, I think, will be over $200 million next year. And even up until, 2 years ago, I would come on this show and we would talk about, Liberty Media and all of that. That narrative's been blown out of the water, just like the narrative that this team can't win a championship. And I'm really interested to see what they do in the offseason simply because they do have some money coming off the books. And, it's going to be interesting, but they have enough money. In my opinion, they have enough money to go out and sign Dansby Swanson to a long-term deal. Then you have your entire infield locked up, which is crazy. And you probably have the money to go ahead and give Max Fried an extension as well, which he certainly deserves. And there's a lot of options out there for Alex Anthopoulos, and they're all really good options. And I'll tell you this, that machine that's printing money in the Battery and at Truist Park, it's not shutting down anytime soon because this team is positioned to be good for quite a long time to come.
But finally, I wanted to ask you about Charlie Morton. I believe going tonight 5-5 with a 4.26 ERA. What do you expect out of him down the stretch? And if the Braves theoretically were to get into a playoff series, would it be Fried, Wright, and Strider in your mind? I mean, how would Morton fit into that situation as well?
That is one thing that I keep rolling around in my head when you think about the prospects of not catching the Mets. Then you're looking at, playing that best of three wild card series at home. If it was me, it would be hard not to give Charlie Morton a start because, he's been there. He's done that. He was a key part of winning a championship in Houston in 2017. He was obviously a key part of winning a championship here last year, although he got hurt in the third inning of his first World Series start. But at the same point in time, if you're just looking at who's had the best year, the best, who gives you the best chance to win, I don't know if Charlie Morton starts one of those first three games. Now, me saying that here and Brian Snitker announcing that as a playoff rotation are two totally different things. But I tell you, you talk about, teams that hit the postseason. And we saw with the Braves at times last year in during their run to the championship that, okay, who's going to start game 4 of the World Series? Who's going to start game 5 of the World Series? Who's going to start game 4 of the NLCS? So having a depth of options is not a bad problem to have at all. And it's a problem that a lot of teams wish they could have in October. But I don't know. I think the next 6 weeks really, kind of plays that out because Kyle Wright threw 137 innings at Gwinnett last year. He's thrown 134 and 2/3 already this year. He's down with a little bit of arm fatigue right now. Is that just catching his breath, letting his arm rest a little bit, or is there something else there that maybe impacts the way he pitches down the stretch? We'll have to see. But, having a veteran guy like Charlie Morton in that rotation is definitely a good thing. Does he start one of my first 3 games of a wild card series right now if everything's even? I don't know. I'd probably have to lean to no because, again, Fried and Wright and Strider have been that good.
Bud Ellis, always a pleasure having you on the show, my friend. We'll talk soon.
All right, boys. Take care.
Bud Ellis joining us here on 3 and Out. We'll come back with more. Game 2 coming up. It is Charlie Morton against Taijuan Walker. Should be a good one tonight. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Charlie Morton tonight. BJ, you talked about a big start for him. He's been vanilla ice cream, right? He's just kind of there, kind of average. 5-5, 426. Needs to come out and show some of that postseason. Charlie Morton tonight. And again, I thought the great thought there by Bud last segment. Wake up call when you went to New York and it was awful. And are you going to win 13 to 1 again? No, but I would hope the Braves come out and treat this series kind of like playoff baseball. And if you can win tonight, again, draws you to 3.5. You're within, screaming distance of the Mets at that point. And you make it, as I talked to Ben yesterday, you got to make them think about it at least a little bit.
Well, sure. And I still think you feel like you can win the division, but also, as Bud alluded to, it's very important to, if you don't win the division, be the first wild card team as well. So let's not forget, I know everybody checks the standings every day. But when you check the standings, take a look over at the wild card standings as well, where I believe Atlanta has built up either a 5.5 or a 6 or a 6.5 game lead for first place. So that's important as well. But yes, I mean, if you take 2 out of 3, it's a much different situation than if you take 1 out of 3 of the remaining 3. It's a much different situation. And I think it's a big start for Charlie Morton. And look, both you guys have said this. For Charlie Morton, who I think is maybe 37, 38 years old, is a veteran, has been around. I don't necessarily think you look at him for kind of what he does in May, right? You don't look at Charlie Morton and go, oh man, you have Charlie Morton on your roster for games like tonight and games like later in the year and games like the postseason. So 5-5 with a 4.26 is not great. You're right. It's kind of average on all fronts, but I think Charlie Morton, who's won 2 World Series and has been an all-star and has been in the league about a decade and a half, I think you look at him and say, hey man, scrap all that. None of that matters. It's about tonight. We have you on this roster for tonight. We have you on this roster for when you get, closer to the playoffs. And I do think, to Bud's point, that experience is very meaningful. I'm very interested to see how he does tonight.
I mean, Charlie Morton should come in and understand that, look, man, I don't want to be a weak link. I mean, you talk about BJ. I mean, a lot of times guys are there for their veteran presence and what they mean to the ball club. But I mean, when every game against the Mets just means more to everybody on this Braves team because that's who you're chasing. So I know we get caught up in the 13-1 and how well the rookies are playing, but it still comes down to starting pitching. No matter what, you can't run from it. Charlie Morton understands that 5-5. I mean, it's not it's not the greatest right now. As Kevin said, he's vanilla. He's
Well, he has been.
But I will say, pressure got to come from somewhere. I mean, just because guys are playing well don't mean they ain't putting the pressure on their back. I mean, we talk about how well Ronald Acuna Jr. was playing now. Well, when they had their run in the month of June, it wasn't because of Ronald Acuna Jr. When he finally hit the home run, when he finally had that home and he kind of running around the bases looking up, saying finally. I think that everybody on this team, everybody's not a star on this team, but you can have a star role. Charlie Morton's in a star role. You got to go out there and make it happen because Kevin, just like I know, if the wheels fall off, they're gonna go same old Charlie Morton. Or you can go out there and say, hey man, I can still be dependent upon. Pitching in baseball is the hardest thing to evaluate because nobody's in that position like that. Like, look, man,
you're a perfect example of why pitching's hard to evaluate, right? Professional Mets pitchers last night. 6 innings, 13 runs. Darren Ruff, a dude on the bench, throwing 55 miles an hour, 2 innings, 1 hit, no
pitcher. By the way.
2 innings, 1 hit, no runs. Dude, would you like to step in against like Darren Ruff? He's up there like throwing 50 miles an hour.
Didn't Charlie Culberson have like a 2.5 ERA during his career or something like
that?
Yeah,
but he could throw like 8 into 80s. Like Darren Ruff's up there like just lobbing it in there. Like I think that's one of those where if you're like, hey, could you hit major league pitching? If Darren Ruff is pitching, throwing it in there at like 50 miles an hour, I have a chance.
I don't know.
You couldn't hit 50?
I
think you could.
I'm saying if I'm a professional athlete,
it screws you up.
And I'm accustomed to seeing 90, 95, 100, and then I go up there, first off, I'm already probably nervous I'm going to strike out and be on SportsCenter. Okay, then second off, like you said, the timing is so different. I mean, I think it would be tough.
Well, it's supposed to be, but BJ, that's the thing too, right there. I don't even know if that's not even off speed. That's no speed. Guys just standing there going, "Is he serious?" Like, I mean, the catcher, when you look at it, when the hitter looks at the catcher's like, "Man, that's all he got." When Strider just gave you, 9 straight pitches of 100 miles an hour. It's about being able to feel your role in the moment, right? Charlie Morton knows, hey man, nobody's gonna feel sorry for you, Charlie. Why? You play for the Braves. You got to go out there and get it done. Because that go Freed, and I know everybody was going crazy with the Mike Soroka thing. Charlie Morton, like, look, man, I just want to be able to say,
All right, what is the Mike Soroka thing? Because I must have.
I mean, finally, after 2 years, he's actually finna start. It's like
he's not going to pitch in the
he's
majors.
not going
this
to
year.
pitch, but he's actually going to go out there and they're going to let him throw, to a catcher. I don't know if they're going to be,
I think he's going to be.
Yeah,
he's going to make a rehab at low A ball. But I mean, he's not pitching in the major leagues this year. He hasn't pitched in the major leagues in 2 years. So
yes, I mean, but the fact that they say, "Hey, Mike, listen, we're gonna put you on Twitter, man. People gonna retweet and everything." Really? Yeah, man. Let people know like you're still a part of this ball club. And then Mike Fo Neighbors called up and like, "Well, what about me? Hello? No, bro. This the other Mike." But no, I will say we always talk about playing for a team that matters. Hey, man, Charlie Morton, go out there and get it done because the Boo Birds are already ready if you stink up the gym.
Oh no, I think Truist Park's gonna be fired up. We got more to come. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to be back here. 3 and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Braves coming up in just a little bit. About 10 minutes from now, we'll get you ready for Game 2. Charlie Morton against Taijuan Walker. And I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I don't care. Mets fans come at me. It'd be good to smack you around a little bit and just put you out of it. Say it with your chest.
What frustrates me about playing the Mets, and I think Ben Ingram even mentioned this last night, is like how many of the little infield singles or like poorly hit but perfectly placed balls like in between the infield and the outfield do they get? Me? It's amazing. And you know what? I mean, credit to them. I know the Braves have done it in the past, but to me, it's one thing when like Pete Alonso hits a 2-run home run that goes 500 feet. You're like, okay. But then when there's a dribbler right between the pitcher and the catcher, and that turns into a single, you're like, it's going to be a long day when that happens. And that actually happened last night in the Braves with Brandon Nimmo, I believe, first batter of the game, and the Braves were able to overcome that. Strider was able to settle in. You had some weather delays, whatever. But I just think you've got to somehow prevent the Mets from getting those bloop hits or infield hits.
You got to leave no doubt. You got to jump on them early. I mean, you want to score runs in bunches. You want to make these guys try to play catch up the entire game. And look, Mother Nature, I know you was not on the Brave side last night, even though with the rain delays. No rain delays tonight. Jump on them early. Young guys, go out there and do what you do. Charlie Morton, go out there and earn your check. Let's go 2 for 2.
Appreciate you joining us here on the show. Bud Ellis and Mike Bratton, that SEC podcast, joining us here in the final hour. Jake Roos and Rich Stiles back in hour number 2. And Aaron Kelton, head football coach at Savannah State, joined us back in hour number 1. If you missed any portion of the show, ESPNcoastal.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can get our audio podcast. If you want to watch us, see our smiling face, you can go to our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal. There on YouTube, you can find us and catch not just today's episode, but if you missed any other show, you can catch it there on our YouTube page, ESPN Coastal on YouTube. Braves and Mets Game 2 coming up just a few minutes. We'll talk to you about it tomorrow here on 3 and Out.